Good morning. It is Thursday, April the 16th, and this is today's psychology lecture. Our question of the day is, if a person is extremely active, excessively talkative, and easily distracted, she may be what? What um, psychological disorder might this person have? Okay. Um, we are getting started on psychological disorders. You were supposed to do some reading yesterday, watch the videos. So today I'm going to get into the lecture. Um, Society, individuals, mental health professionals all use different standards to judge normal and abnormal behavior. The main standard is what behaviors conform to social order. The individual is the individual, his or her own sense of well-being. Mental health professionals look at personality characteristics as well as personal discomfort and life functioning. If you look at table 13.1 on page 486, it kind of talks about standards and values and measures there, okay? If you read that chapter, you know that it's kind of hard to determine abnormal behavior. There's perspectives on psychological disorders and what causes them. That was at the very beginning of the chapter. It turns into historical views next. Individuals and societal perspectives can be in conflict in these cases. Talking about those at the first of the book. Mental health professionals would be able to decide all three are displacing abnormal behavior. So let's go back and look just to make sure you understand what we're talking about, okay? First one, a male college student is popular with women and enjoys partying. His grades have always been fairly good, but recently is having difficulty concentrating on anything but having a good time. Okay, that was the first one. The second one, a 10-year-old child has a mild developmental delay in fine motor coordination that makes his handwriting immature compared to his classmates. Although his reading, calculating, and reasoning abilities are all normal or advanced, his handwriting makes him feel so self-conscious that he stops trying to get good grades and withdraws socially from other children. Okay, that's the second one. And the third one, a highly successful female lawyer is unmarried, and although she has many relationships with men, is unwilling to make a commitment. She feels driven to become a partner in her firm before the age of 28, and she's 27 now. Recently, she has occasionally found herself drinking to excess. Okay, so those are the three different ones. And so what we said was that mental health professionals would be able to decide if all three are displaying abnormal behavior. Okay, mental health professionals determine abnormal behavior as either manipulative, life functioning, or serious discomfort, or both. We don't know what was considered abnormal behavior thousands of years ago. But we know that mysterious actions were attributed to supernatural powers. Madness was a sign that spirits had possessed a person. Sometimes they were seen as sacred and their visions as messengers from the gods. Other times as evil spirits and their actions considered dangerous. Okay. Some Native American tribes, if someone acted crazy, they left them alone. They felt that it was I'll say bad karma to harm them, and so they leave them alone. Even if a white man was traveling through their area and he was acting crazy and erratic, as long as he didn't attack them, they left him alone. They stayed away from him. They were afraid that it would be a disruption, and there would be evil spirits would come out if they killed him and come into some of them. So they just stayed away from them. Okay, even their own tribe, they just let them do their thing. Tried to take care of them, but when they were in their rants and stuff, they just let it go. So there's a little bit of credit to what we've said so far about it. They could be possessed. Okay. This supernatural view of abnormal behavior dominated all early societies. Roots of naturalistic view of abnormal behavior are traced to ancient Greece. Hippocrates mentioned that madness was like all other sicknesses. Okay. Hippocrates' naturalistic approach had lasting positive influence. It started a systematic search to uncover causes of mental health that people should be treated with care and sympathy. During the Middle Ages, Europeans went back to the supernatural view of abnormal behavior. Psychological disorders were seen as work of demons. The person was thought to be a witch or possessed by the devil. This brought about exorcisms ranging from mild to hair-raising. Many people endured horrifying tortures. Some were even burned at the stake. Here was the thing. They tried to prove that it wasn't evil, because if they burned you at the stake and you died, then it wasn't evil. But if they burned you at the stake and you lived, then it was evil. Now, how's that for logic? And that's what they did in the Salem witch trials. If they burned a woman at a stake and she died, oh, our bad, she wasn't a witch. But if they burned her at the stake and she got off the stake and I guess went after them, they realized, hey, she was a witch. We need to try to kill her. Well, you can't kill her. Didn't make sense. Same thing with drownings. They would put them in water. And if they didn't drown, then they were a witch. Explain that. But that's how people did, okay? The late Middle Ages, public and private asylums were being established. Even though the asylums started with good intentions, they were more like prisons. Some inmates were chained down and not given food, light, or air to cure them. In 1793, this was a turning point in the treatment of the mentally ill. Philippe Pinel became director of the Bayecine Hospital in Paris. Patients were released from their chains and allowed to move about the hospital grounds. Pinel's reforms were soon followed in England and later in America. Dorothea Dix was the most noticeable reformer in America. She was a school teacher from Boston. She led the nationwide campaign for humane treatment of mentally ill people. Asylums were turned into hospitals, but those hospitals failed to do what Dix had campaigned for. Okay, deinstitutionalization, which was the movement of mental patients out of large hospitals, became the goal of mental health care. And Dix had a lot of good things she did. She also tried to work in prison reforms. She also started the nursing corps during the Civil War. So she was pretty well respected, but she never quite got what she wanted out of these mental health institutions. Even though she tried to make them better, tried to make them more like hospitals, it still didn't always work so well. Part of the thing is you have to get people who believe in what you're doing to come and staff those hospitals, okay? And that makes things kind of tough, okay? The biological model, the view that psychological disorders have a biochemical or psychological basis. The psychological disorders are caused by a psychophysiological malfunctions of the nervous systems or the endocrine glands. Heredity plays a significant role in this. The psychoanalytic model, developed by Freud and his followers, behavior disorders are symbolic expressions of unconscious internal conflicts which can be traced to early years of life. People must become aware that the source of their problem is in their childhood and infancy before they can resolve these problems. Now, we all know that Freud, we've mentioned him quite a few times before, his theories were pretty radical, to say the least. He did come up with psychoanalysis, which is still used today, but a lot of his theories are heatedly debated today, but they don't follow a lot of what Freud believed in the subconscious things from childhood and how you were sexually repressed or sexually abused as a child, or how you didn't go through the stages properly, and in some of those stages has caused you problems later in life. You never got over the fact that if you were a female, you were in love with your father and wanted to get rid of your mom, or you're a male, you're in love with your mom and want to get rid of your dad. Okay, that was a lot of Freud stuff, and people just don't use that today. Okay, now the cognitive behavioral model, psychological disorders, like all behavior, are a result of learning. Stressors, both internal and external, in the learning process and the development of treatment and of psychological disorders. Okay, some examples: the bright student who considers himself academically inferior to classmates believe he does not have the ability to perform well on the test. He does not study with confidence. He performs poorly on the test. Both punishes his test score, both punishes and his effort and confirms his belief. So what that says, and I messed it up as I read it, he doesn't study with conviction. He believes he's going to do bad. So when he does bad, that confirms the fact that he couldn't do well on it. And it also punishes his effort that he had because he got a bad grade. Okay. Now, the Dieethus stress model, this model suggests that biological predisposition or Dieethus must combine with some kind of stressful circumstance before the predisposition to mental disorder shows up as a behavior. People are biologically prone to develop a particular disorder under stress. Now, the systems approach examines how biological, psychological, and social risk factors combine to produce psychological disorders, also known as the psychosocial model. Emotional problems are lifestyle diseases, and lifestyle diseases are caused by a combination of biological risk. Classifying psychological disorders. The American Psychological Association, the APA, issued a manual describing and classifying the various kinds of psychological disorders. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Disorders, which is DSM, first published in 1968, last revised in 2013, and that's what our book says. Our book was 2000. It is intended to provide a complete list of mental disorders. Each category has defined terms of behavior patterns, so diagnosis will be realistic. The DSM has gained increasingly acceptance because of its detailed criteria for diagnosing mental disorders. Okay, and I think if you look on page 490 of your book, you will see some of the categories of the DSM, and this will be the DSM-4RT. It's on page 490. It's table 13.2. It gives categories and some of the examples of some of those disorders. All right. Now, the prevalence of psychological disorders. How common are psychological disorders in the U.S.? Are they increasing or decreasing over time? Are some population groups more prone to these disorders than others? Okay. These are all questions that psychologists, and the public health experts are interested in. They look at the prevalence and the incidence of mental health problems. Prevalence refers to the frequency that given disorder occurs over a given time. If there were 100 cases of depression in a population of 1,000, the prevalence would be 10%. The incidence refers to the number of new cases in a given period of time. If in that same 1,000 people, there were 10 new cases a year, that would give an incident rate of 1% per year. The APA funded a wide-ranging study of 20,000 people on the prevalence of psychological disorders. The results were 14.9% were found to be experiencing a clinically significant mental disorder, 6% a significantly substance abuse disorder. The most common mental disorder was anxiety disorder, followed by phobias and mood disorders. Schizophrenia, which often involves hallucinations, was found to affect 1% or more of 2 million people. Substance abuse was found in 6% of the population, alcohol abuse being 3 times more prevalent than all other drugs combined. Okay. I'm going to cut off there. We'll start off mood disorders on Monday. There will not be anything for tomorrow. Tomorrow is considered another institute day in which teachers are working on pulling things together to get us through the next couple of weeks. We don't know yet if we'll be back the 1st of May or not. It sure would be nice. I would rather be in class and get and interact with you and at least maybe asking some questions as we go along with this. I want to urge you to do your work, get your test done, get your questions of the day done, your vocab things done. Any work that is not being finished has to be put down as incomplete now, and that will come back to get you. If we come back in May, you'll have to make all that up during that time. If we don't come back, there's a strong possibility that some of you may have to try to make that up in August, okay, to get those grades to be complete. I don't think you want that. So go ahead and get to work, get in the Teams app, and get on this work. I'll accept late work. Under these circumstances, whenever you get it done, I go in and check it and I grade it and I'll give you the points. Okay. So late work isn't a problem. Just go ahead and get your work done. All right. That'll be it for today. Hope you all are staying safe. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll be back again on Monday. Take care.